Hey guys, this is Yoda. This will be my City of Threads masterclass video. This is one of the new dungeons in Season 1 or within Mythic Plus. We'll be going over a video of my gameplay and I'll kind of just talk through like what all the packs are doing and what we're doing to counter that throughout the dungeon. So we start off going to this little thing over here. This is a profession thing in the dungeon. All these statues, you can talk to them if you have, I believe it's engineering to 25, or if you're a rogue or a priest, you can talk to the statue and then it'll like do this little thing. When this is over, you get 15% damage and healing for 30 seconds. You don't need to be in at the beginning, you just need to be in at the end. I'm tagging these casters to make a bigger first pull. In this pull, I'm gonna wait for me to pull this pack here so you can see everything. So we pull a Swarm Guard. In this pull, there's these Silk Binders, Venom Blades, and the Swarm Guards. So the Silk Binders are just casters. They cast Web Bolt like on repeat at a random party member. And they also have a channel called Silk Binding. If you have to let something go off, it's usually going to be Web Bolt. Don't let the Silk Binding full channel, otherwise it's going to stun someone. These Venom Blades are just tank damage. They do a Venom Strike, which kind of hits you kind of hard and applies a dot. And this Swarm Guard is considered like a mini boss type mob. He every now and then will pulse AoE. I forget, he does a front and he does a frontal. So this is Earth Shatter, this is the frontal. Generally, you'll have like, you probably don't want to pull 3 of these. You usually have 2. And you'll have like 2 kicks on each, and then AoE stops to fill in the gaps when you don't have kicks. Or you just let bolts go off. It's kind of whatever in lower keys. Just try to make sure you don't let it go off during this ability. So Ravenous Swarm is what he's casting right now. This applies a dot to the whole party, and it ticks like kind of hard if you're not healing. We're like in Lust, and we have like a healing amp, and you notice the Warlock actually got bolted there as an overlap. So it doesn't hurt that much, but usually you want to not let bolts go off to overlap with that. Our Warlock almost died there. All right, so the next part of our route, I think we're gonna go talk to this statue, and then we do a skip here. The mobs in this area are kind of annoying to play because they just require so many kicks. Like, look at this pack. There's double Silk Binder, which is going to require, like, we don't even have enough kicks for that alone. And then the Herald also has spam cast as well. So we're skipping these packs. And we get here. So this is a new mob here. The Swarm Guard plus all of his Battle Scarabs are not new. You saw them last time. This guy just does the front on the AoE. The Herald has a spam kick, which is called Twist Thoughts. If it ever goes off, it just does, like, some damage. And it drops a puddle underneath them. This Herald has a kind of an interesting mechanic called Shadow of Doubt. So you just finish casting it. And the dot goes on our Evoker over here. You can see these 5 balls. Whenever he gets dispelled, these 5 balls are going to shoot out. And if you get hit, then you get stunned. And you take a lot of damage too. As a tank, usually if you get hit, it's going to be lethal. So gotta watch out. Here's the ball. It actually hits me square in the face. I have to bubble it. So yeah, watch out for those. It's very similar to the Prideful mechanic from Season 1 Shadowlands if you played that. The dot also does tick on him pretty hard before he dispels it, so it's kind of important to dispel relatively quickly. We chain in some smallers for fun when it dies. Next, we'll go into the boss fight. So this boss is very claustrophobic, as you'll see. As soon as we pull him, you see this circle around him. Basically, if you leave this circle, you get pulled in. As soon as I pull the boss, we're like already outside, so we're getting pulled in. He also does a tank buster right off the bat called Subjugate. This Subjugate has a physical and a magic component. So if you mitigate either physical or magical, either you'll survive. You'll probably survive. If you mitigate everything, then you'll obviously also survive. So he does a tank buster at the start of the phase and also after the Terrorize usually. So it goes Terrorize, and then he puts out the Shadows of Doubt. So this is the same Shadows of Doubt as the mob we just fought, except now there's 2 of them, and we're in this claustrophobic space, so it's quite a bit harder to play. He does double Shadows of Doubt and the frontal. He does this every single time in the phase, quote unquote. So basically you just have to dodge the frontal, and then everyone spreads out, and the other dispels one, and then the other one goes off. After this, there's another tank buster, and then after the tank buster, he does a group AoE, which is called Vociferous Indoctrination, basically just a group AoE. You have to be very careful at the end of this group AoE. He's going to drop a puddle, and then you basically move him, and then what I call the phase restarts. He restarts his spell queue. So he's going to do this. Indoctrination does AoE to the whole group. Now he's dropping the puddle. You got to move really quick. This puddle ticks instantly, and it's like kind of right after you just pulse the whole group with AoE. So if you don't move instantly, you're probably going to die. So make sure you're all stacked. Make sure you all know where you're going. You should all like drop a ping in the direction we're going. This group has kind of been playing a bunch of beta, so everyone knows like you're just going down the lane, and then you're going to turn, and then you go down the lane again. There is a way to play the boss like in this area too, but we're not doing that strat right now. So we restarted the phase, and then everyone knows first hit is a tank hit, then 1 frontal. Tank hit hurts a lot, by the way. I got TD here. And then the next frontal is going to be with the debuffs, Shadow of Doubt. So this is Shadow of Doubt plus frontal. And then after that, it's tank hit into the AoE. And then after this, he drops ground. We're just gonna move one more time. And we ping the direction. Usually in this group, we're not doing it because we're all in comms, so we don't need to. And that's it. I'll show you the turn here. So obviously, it's not that complicated. We've been moving the same way after every single AoE. Remember, this boss will suck you in and do damage if you are not like next to him. So every time you move, you got to be very careful. Okay, so this is the turn. We just turned, and then after this, every single phase, we just move one to the next side. All right, so that's this boss. After that, you cross this bridge. There is some trash you can do, like if you turn left here, but we're not doing that. This mini boss, Zephidic, you have to fight. You have to kill this guy, otherwise you are unable to do the rest of the event. The event is, the RP event, quote unquote, is that you have to find 4 Eyes of the Queen who are basically like disguised as normal civilians. The role play is when you kill this guy, he gives you some perfume detecting whatever. And you can, when you're walking around, you can see like perfume clones of the Eyes of the Queen, and they'll like eventually point to the real one. The first one always spawns right here. The first one is always in the same spot, and it's right here. That's why our Evoker tagged him immediately. So you can do 2-target cleave with the Eye of the Queen and Zephidic, which is really good instead of having to kill one and then kill the other one separately, right? Zephidic is kind of simple, even though I say that and I just got hit by one of his swirlies, but he basically he just has a kick and he drops some swirlies, just kick and dodge, basically. These Eyes of the Queen are you have to fight 4 of them during the RP event. So they have one move called Void Rush. This puts an AoE on everyone that your healer will have to heal through. And then they also have Null Slam. So he basically casts this, and then when it's done casting, he disappears. He teleports behind someone. He does a big frontal right here. Boom, Null Slam. It's really annoying, by the way, if you have like if your damage is reliant on some debuff that pops. I remember Arcane Mages were really, really mad at this guy. That's basically all he does. Void Rush, which is the AoE on everyone. If you're like a light party, like if you don't have all 5 people here, this can also give 2 stacks of the same person, which is super deadly. And the Null Slam, that's all he does. Okay, so now we're gonna go into how to do the RP event. One crucial thing, basically that defines our strategy, is that you want to end the RP event on the right. So like to our right here is gonna be like, there's a guy that we need to talk to who's gonna end the RP event basically. So if we want to end there, then we're gonna go left first. So we start by going left, and we start looking. We're like perfumed up now. When we see these clones, it'll like eventually lead us to the correct spy. We've done so many City of Threads on beta that we kind of know the patterns. But basically, the first clone you see, this is the key. The first clone you see right here is always lying. If he says he's going left, then that means he's in the house. If he says he's going right, that means he's going left. The first clone you see is always lying. The rest of the clones you see are normal. So we can see, I see this guy like pointing left, and I already know the real guy's in the house. So we go in the house, lo and behold, we found it. Somehow my team is getting web wrapped during this. This is like kind of like a guards. If you walk into this circle, you get web wrapped. It does quite a bit of damage, and you're not stunned, by the way, during the wrap. So use a personal so you don't die. If you die, then you have to go all the way to the beginning. If you just get caught, then you go to the start of the RP zone. So make sure you don't die while you're getting web wrapped. Somehow my group is getting web wrapped right now. I'm not sure what that's about. This is what it looks like when you find the spy. I think I wait around. Oh, we summon. We have a warlock, so we're like, what are you noobs doing? Whatever, we'll just summon them. Once you tag this guy, he spawns some friends usually. The first one has no friends. The second one has like a knife throw guy and a web marauder. The third one has a caster, and the fourth one has all the mobs. The new mobs here are the web marauder, which just does a tank hit, doesn't really hurt, and the agile pursuer. The agile pursuer just casts a knife throw at a random person on repeat. It doesn't really do that crazy damage, but you should be careful when it's knife throwing and the Eye of the Queen is using Void Rush. That overlap can be somewhat deadly. Basically just try to throw a stun on him, or just use a personal if you get targeted during Void Rush. There's also some bug right now on beta where at the start these guys tend to reset aggro, so just try to stay away if you're a melee. Just be super careful with getting melee. You don't want to get hit, otherwise you can die. So that's this pack. We blow it up and we move on. So after we go left, we're gonna want to go in like a clockwise manner. That way we end up, like when we finally find the third guy, it's like right next to the last guy we need to do. We get way up here, so we have a warlock. If you don't have a warlock, you can walk up. It's over here. If you go here and turn right, you can walk up here, which is really super useful because oftentimes a guard will be blocking the stairway. There's a little path over here. You can kind of just like jump a bit and you'll go up on your mount. We don't need to do that because we have a gateway, but yeah. Here we're passing some possible spawns. It's possible that a guard can spawn here. We check. There's a guy facing. Remember, after the first clone, all of the ones are like telling the truth. So this one's facing this guy. This is the guard. This is similar to the first pack, except now there's a Webmancer. This guy is just a spam caster. All you have to do is kick him. There's only one guy to kick, so just rotate kicks and you're good. So that's this guy. We can skip to the end of the pack. After this, we continue going clockwise. I'm just like doing some weird stuff over here to keep my tier set as a paladin. So yeah, we go clockwise here. We don't go down the previous path because we know the last guy is always near the counselor, I believe. The counselor is our friend who's gonna start the RP event for us. We figured out that this one is in the house by just looking at these perfume clones. As you can see, they're all facing like the correct answer, and then you eventually get to him. The only one, as I said before, is the first one is always a lie. It's not like a lie, it'll just take you in a roundabout way. All right, so this pack is nothing that we haven't seen before. One spam caster, one knife thrower, and the mini boss, plus one guy that hits a tank, but he doesn't really hit that hard. All right, so once the 4 eyes of the queen are dead, we want to talk to Executor Nizrek. We don't really have to talk to him, we just have to go near him. By the way, Executor Nizrek is the guy I was talking about before. He's always in the same spot on the right, which is why we start off by going left, looking for eyes of the queen, and we end our path near him. So once we find him, he's going to go up these stairs. You can kind of just follow him. Or if you've done enough of this dungeon, then you know exactly where he's going. So that's what we're doing. We're going up here. There's a pretty long RP here to wait for. Once he gets here, ooh, he gets caught by the fangs of the queen. So this is going to be a boss fight. These two could cause a lot of trouble, but as long as you know what mechanics are going on, you'll probably be all right. All right, so they're active here. They start off spread out. I believe this one, VX casts knife throw and NX is movable, so you want to be moving NX on top of VX as much as you can. Go over the mechanics as they appear. So Shade Slash, just dodge. Every time you cast Shade Slash, the next one you'll cast an extra Shade Slash. So it's like a little bit harder to dodge, but really it's not that hard. So you see casting Shade Slash, now there's 2 of them. Next time there'll be 3. You can kind of tell from these purple puddles where they're gonna shoot from, but I never really pay attention, and no one really needs to either. Just know that the next one will be 3 and it's a little bit harder to dodge. This next mechanic is Duskbringer plus Icicles. Whenever the boss is casting Duskbringer, that's when like you're in danger of dying. It does a lot of pulsing AoE, and it's overlapping with something that VX is doing. In this phase, it's Duskbringer plus Icicles. In the next phase, it'll be Duskbringer plus Rime Dagger. So right now it's Duskbringer plus Icicles. Icicles targets everyone in the party with like a little thing. You can see them here. This is while Duskbringer's pulsing AoE, by the way. So he targets everyone, and then boom, he shoots them all out. If you're stacked, if they're in the same line, then you get hit by 2 of them, you can die. If you get hit by 1, then you just take a bunch of damage, and you get this dot. If you have a Dwarf, Mass Dispel, or a way to dispel slow, you can get rid of this dot yourself. Otherwise, it just needs to be dispelled or healed. If none of that happens, then you're just going to get ticked down and be slowed a bit. When the boss starts casting Synergic Step, that means it's the end of that phase. He's going to do this and then go like into a little formation, then go to the next phase. So this mechanic is kind of annoying, especially for melee. They just dash away, and then they dash back, then they dash away again. It's not really productive to try and chase them down. Usually I just let them charge out, then use a range skill and wait for them to come back and then hit them again. So that signals the end of phase. Now they're doing this weird thing that means they're going to start the next phase. Here NX is casting Knife Throw, and I believe VX is the one you can move. So Rime Dagger is a hit on the tank. It does a big initial hit both on you and everyone else around you, and then after that you need to soak. As a group. He does 2 of them in quick succession. The second one is overlapped with Duskbringer, so if you have an immunity or a big person, you want to use it there. The first one is kind of like an introductory, so you just basically just stack up and soak. It's not that crazy. Does like a decent amount of damage, but as long as you're like ready for it, it won't kill you. If you have an immunity, remember, it's the second one that is especially deadly. So here, you're going to see he's casting Rime Dagger, and the other guy is casting Duskbringer. That's when you're in massive danger. Fortunately, I'm playing Paladin, so I'm immuning the second Rime Dagger of every set. Like, it's going to be Bubble this one, then the next time he does this, it's Spell Ward, and then the next time it's going to be Bubble. So it seems I'm not playing Spell Ward here, so I guess we'll have to deal with it next time. But yeah, if you're not playing Paladin or Death Knight, then you will have to, like, all stack on the same side and then all run out of the Duskbringer the same way and soak while getting ticked down. So it's a really tough fight for your healer if you can't immune here. Then we just go back to some knife throws. By the way, these knife throws put a bleed, which is Dwarf or Dispellable by Cauterizing Flame. Then a Synergic Step again, so we know he's moving on to the next phase. In the next phase, VX is casting Knife Throw and NX is the one autoing. They actually swap between phases, which is kind of interesting. So we do Shade Slash. Every single one, remember, casts an extra slash, but, you know, just dodge. It's kind of simple. Just walk out. The graphic can sometimes be wrong. Just be careful. But, yeah, not really any counterplaying that. So we're in this phase. It's the Duskbringer plus the Icicles. Duskbringer, Icicles. You can see it's facing everyone. They spread out. They get some dots. This guy AMSs it. Then we move on to the next phase, Synergic Step. Okay, here we have the first Rime Dagger, which is doing a lot of damage, I guess. And then the next Rime Dagger. Oh, I do have Spell Word, so I end up Spell Wording this. So we don't have to soak it, but remember, if you don't have Spell Word, like if I didn't Spell Word this, I was for sure dead, and then everyone else was probably also dead. And that's the fight, pretty much. He just does that on repeat. One phase is Duskbringer plus Icicles, the next one is Duskbringer plus Rime Dagger. But if it helps, if you can immune that Rime Dagger overlap. Alright, after this, Nizarek will open up the path for us, and we're going up to some really dangerous tank mobs. So up here, the new mob here is a Sareki Conscript. There's a bunch of these, like they're considered like small mobs, I guess, by Blizzard, but they apply a stacking tank debuff called Brutal Jab, and every single stack is 10% more physical damage taken, and they do a lot of physical damage, so you got to be very careful fighting these. Also, since they don't really hurt anyone except the tank, it's possible to pull big as long as you, the tank, can survive, so everyone expects every tank to just go pull big and figure it out and try to live. I wouldn't worry about it too much, especially in the early weeks. Just pull what you can survive. But yeah, we're gonna do this pull. So we pull double, there's a bunch of conscripts and 2 agile pursuers. These agile pursuers are the same mobs we fought before. They just jump around and cast knife throw. As a tank, when you're kiting, you want to try and keep all of these melee mobs on top of the pursuers if possible, but really just prioritize staying alive. This pack is very, very difficult for tanks. My strategy here, I think since I'm playing Paladin, is just pop some cooldowns to survive. Then we used an Oppressing Roar stun to help me reset stacks. Then the next time I get stacks, I have bubble, except I died instantly, so I didn't have the chance to bubble. We ended up using B-Res, and then I just bubble taunt. Clearly I should have just bubbled before I died. But yeah, as I was saying, these mobs are very dangerous, so don't be afraid to kite them. Okay, so we finish off the pack. Then we do another pull, I think, that's very similar. This one has 2 Webmancers. The Webmancers cast spam bolts. I think it's called Grimweave Blast. Fortunately, I'm playing Paladin, so I just solo interrupt one and everyone kicks the other one. Otherwise, we'd have to like do a kick rotation on each one and then do AoE stops to fill. But I'm Paladin, so I just solo one, everyone else kicks the other one. There's a bunch more of these conscripts here, so you can notice they're like doing horrible things to my health bar. I do end up having a kite. Yeah, if you have an AoE slow, it's actually super useful in this area. I think we, for some reason, don't, so kind of had to get lucky there to not get a re-up-kitchen of the dots of the stacks, and I'm still just running for my life. It's actually so dangerous doing these pulls. All right, anyway, we finished that. Next, we're coming up on these stairs. So these have some more conscripts and double Webmancer. Usually, we pull this with the mini-boss that's on the top of the stairs. Since this time we didn't have cooldowns, we decided against it. Especially in early weeks, I recommend not going up to the mini-boss. It's going to be a very, very scary pull. These guys are spamming Grimweave Blast, and the mini-boss does a bunch of AoE damage. If like a blast goes off at the wrong time, someone could easily die. These conscripts are also putting a lot of pressure on your tank, so it's making it harder for you to do whatever you want to do to like keep the group alive as well. So anyway, we solo this pack, and then we go on to the Venom Shell. So this Venom Shell basically only does one thing, which is called Venomous Spray. You cast it, it puts a pretty big poison dot on everyone. Although, note that it is a poison dot, so if you have poison spells, you can negate it. He also puts these swirlies on the ground while he's casting it, so just dodge, I guess. And that's pretty much all he does. Yeah, I got hit by a swirl there. Okay, he also has a frontal, I suppose, but the frontal is kind of easy to dodge, so it's just frontal and the spray, and that's the whole boss. The spray does do a lot of damage though, especially if you can't dispel poison, so watch out for that. Alright, after that, we're heading into the last area of the dungeon. This dungeon features Sareki Unnaturalers. Basically, they just do one thing, they cast Void Weave. All you have to do is kick. There's not that many interrupts in this area. By the way, if that goes off, it'll knock you, and if you walk into these little cocoons here, you spawn an extra mob that just basically doesn't give you any count and it starts spamming bolts. They're not really that dangerous, but obviously try to avoid walking into these cocoons, otherwise, you know, you'll spawn some useless mobs that you have to waste time killing. This test subject is kind of the new mob here. It's considered a mini boss type, so it's immune to CCs. He casts Dark Barrage, which is dropping all these swirlies on the ground. And he also casts Fierce Stomping, which is what I'll do after this. You'll see it in a sec, or you won't because I'm moving into the next room. The reason I'm moving into the next room is that these congealed droplets all need to die before we spawn the boss. Once they die, it basically starts the RP event that spawns the boss. So it's kind of like actually more important to kill these than the test subject. That's why I'm moving so far ahead. Also, you know, got a pad. You can see our health is kind of moving down while he casts Fierce Stomping. Quickly moving up the stairs to get back aggro, and we just finished the pull. Oh, we'll see. You guys, I'll watch him do Fierce Stomping here. So here's Fierce Stomping while he's actually on the screen. does some damage to everyone, you know, just heal through, and that's it. All right, next we're moving on to the Coagulation. This boss can be really hard if your tank requires a lot of healing and if your healer is unable to provide that healing. So you'll see why soon. So the first thing he starts off with is Oozing Smash. It's a tank buster. He does 2 of these every phase. The first one of the phase is less dangerous, so if you have an immunity, you want to use it on the second one. You'll see why soon. So Oozing Smash, basically just use any personal. It actually hits kind of hard. I took a lot of damage there, and it also puts this debuff. This debuff is 30% healing received reduced. Normally that wouldn't be a problem because he doesn't do too much else other than melee you, but next he's going to cast this ability called Viscous Darkness. So what this does, it knocks everyone back and it spawns these shadow orbs that start going towards the boss. If any of them touch him, it's a 7% heal. So you really don't want that to happen. And if that hits any party member, then they get a small dot plus a healing absorb. The reason I said before that the second tank buster of every phase is scarier is because it's lighting up with all these balls coming in. Your healer doesn't want to heal you right now. So you need to, if you're saving like a super strong cooldown or an immunity, you should use it on the second one of every phase. I'm playing Paladin here, so it's going to be like a normal cooldown on the first one and then bubble on this one, and then next time it's like normal cooldown into Spell Ward, then the time after that it's normal cooldown into bubble. So yeah, I bubble here on the smash and then I just go soak in the bubble. If you have immunities, they're extremely effective against these types of balls. You can see these healing absorbs tracked on my UI. That's on my healer right now. If I didn't bubble that, the healer would be like in despair trying to like heal me up from it, but fortunately I'm Paladin, so I just immune it. One of the few things Paladin's actually good at. So he casts Viscous Darkness twice. On the second time he casts it, you need to be careful because mid-soaking ball, he's going to cast this ability, Blood Surge, which puts a circle around him. If you're in this circle at the end, it's basically lethal damage. So you need to make sure you're pre-spread here. If the ball is like right here going in, just not really in a counterplay, so you need to make sure that you're on top of soaking balls before he casts this. Also note that every time we soak a ball, it's dropping these little puddles on the ground, and when you cast Blood Surge, it's going to drop a massive puddle. Usually the move is you just run around soaking balls. After he drops Blood Surge, most of the balls are going to be already soaked, so you can freely move him to a clean area. So he drops Blood Surge, and then we move him over here. After Blood Surge, he's going to do a big AoE. It's called Dark Pulse. I guess you have some like AFK time here to just do damage. Not much is happening. So he does Dark Pulse. This cycle repeats itself every 1 minute 15-ish. So I guess keep that in mind when you're assigning cooldowns. So he does this Dark Pulse, just like use a personal or AoE CDs to survive. And then the phase resets. So he's doing Oozing Smash, which is the same thing he did right at the start of the phase. This is the first one of the phase, so I'll just pop a small cooldown. And then hopefully we get healed through. Before the next one, we will use Spell Ward, and then Spell Ward the tank buster while soaking. I almost died at just straight up his autos here, which is kind of embarrassing, but that is the state of Paladin right now. We Spell Ward the tank buster, and then we're just going to run around soaking balls with the Spell Ward. If you're DK with AMS, it's like so effective against this boss. Okay, anyway, that's the whole boss basically. You just do that, rinse and repeat, move him every time you cast Blood Surge, and that's it. Alright, so that's this boss. After this boss, we still need Count, I think. This is actually a really long fight, holy. Come up next to this Unstable Test Subject. These assistants don't really do anything, they just melee and they don't really hurt that much. Notice our healer walked into this room, he's starting RP. There's a couple mini bosses at the end of this dungeon, and they don't spawn until you walk into the room, so that's why our healer walked in there. This test subject we've already seen, so I'm going to skip through. After this, he decides to pull the mini boss early. From off screen. I wasn't ready for this actually, so we'll talk about this mini boss as soon as he pulled it. It basically has 2 abilities, Umbral Weave, which does a lot of damage to your whole group, and it also roots them. He also has a spam cast, I think it's called Void Bolt or something. Basically just kick, and then for this Umbral Weave, you're going to want to stack. If you played Dragonflight Season 3, it's similar to Gnarl Root from the Everbloom. It basically just roots everyone, and then you have to break your root. You can do it with Freedom or some other immunities as well, or just with damage. You'll notice he's casting Web Bolt. It's not called Void Bolt, I guess it's called Web Bolt. Just kick, and that's the whole mechanic. The overlap here is kind of scary with the Unstable Test Subject. Not sure why we went so aggressively, but it is what it is. Alright, so that's this guy. He just spams casts and does Umbral Weave. There is another mini boss, by the way, available to pull. I highly recommend not pulling both together. This guy doesn't do that much AoE damage, but the other one goes crazy on AoE damage. Any extra damage you take is going to be lethal. Okay, so that's this Shade Weaver, Umbral Weave, and the Bolt. That's all it is. Okay, so this Hulking Warshell is way more dangerous than the Void Weaver we just fought. As soon as you pull him, he does Ravenous Swarm, which we've seen from before. The same ability from the beginning. And he also does Tremor Slam. So this Ravenous Swarm is just a dot on the whole group. We actually need counters, so I'm gonna go pull stuff. Tremor Slam is another AoE on the whole group, and he just repeats these. Ravenous Swarm into Tremor Slam into Ravenous Swarm into Tremor Slam over and over again, so he's just pounding your group in AoE the whole time. Whenever he does Tremor Slam, he also spawns these scarabs around him. 4 of them, so just get aggro. Don't let him melee your team as a tank. I actually bubble for aggro here. The worth noting is that the Tremor Slam and the Ravenous Swarm are on different cooldowns. So the first one is like Swarm and then wait a long time and then Tremor Slam, so it's not dangerous at all. The second one is Tremor Slam and then immediately Ravenous Swarm, so this is like a semi-overlap since you're not topped and then you're all getting this dot, so it's like kind of scary. In fact, this guy died from just that plus a melee. And if you look at my cooldown tracker, the next one is going to be Swarm immediately into Tremor Slam, so it's like the real overlap. So you need to make sure you're on the third one. You need to have a personal for this guy. So here it is. He's going to cast Swarm, put a dot on everyone, and then while we have the dot, he's casting Tremor Slam. We're like as hard assigning like massive cooldowns for this. So we just survive. But yeah, watch out for this, especially like when people are new to the dungeon. They're not going to be ready for it. Make sure you are. All right, so that's the mini boss. We still need count, so I go and pull some random dorks, which we're going to pull into the boss. So this is the last boss, Izo Grand Splicer. If you've ever played League of Legends and you know who Orianna is, there's a lot of similarities here. So he starts off by spawning these 3 balls. Bigwigs now has the timer. It's called Shifting Anomalies. Whenever this happens, it's going to move the balls. If you get hit, you're probably dead. Unless you're a tank, in which case you just get knocked. So here's the bell movement. Boom, boom, boom. He moves all 3 and then he does an ability. This one's Tremor Slam. So he basically has the same abilities as the 2 mini bosses we just fought. Yeah, so he does Tremor Slam. It's kind of like a random order. He either does Tremor Slam first or Umbral Reef first. It's like completely random. I couldn't find any patterns. So he either casts one of those. He also casts Splice, which puts a dot on the whole party. And he makes these balls move. So it's always Splice into balls moving into random mechanic. So balls are moving. This one's not random because he already did Tremor Slam this phase. So this time he's going to do Umbral Weave. After you dodge the balls, you stack for the Umbral Weave so you can DPS down the roots easily. These roots actually have a pretty tight DPS check. If you notice, we're all rooted, but Shifting Anomalies is going to cast in 3 seconds. So if we're still rooted in 3 seconds, then we're going to die to the balls running into us. So make sure we have damage. We need to make sure you have damage for these roots. In fact, we almost die here. In fact, I think I'm going to get hit. Yeah, so I do get hit and our healer dies. We fail the DPS check. Fortunately, we have B-Res. And then at the end of every phase, he's going to cast Process of Elimination. This signals the end of the phase. He basically picks up all the balls and then throws them all at the tank one at a time. There's 3 hits, so just try to heal yourself up in between hits and make sure you use a personal. Here, I think I bubble because my healer's dead. Yeah, I just bubble, so I get the free pass on this one. Know that there is a pretty decent AoE around the tank. If you're max melee hitting Izo as the tank, then your melee DPS can hit him from max melee range on the other side from our beta testing. Then we restart the phase, we spawn the 3 balls. Then he's going to cast Splice, I think. Yeah, so it's spawn balls into Splice into move balls into random mechanic, either the Slam or the Umbral Weave. So this time it's Slam again. This is the Slam, it does AoE damage and he spawns some ads into balls move into Splice. So it's basically just every time he's about to do something, he moves the balls first. Think of it that way. And every time he's about to do an AoE, he casts Splice first. So it's Splice into balls move, into Umbral Weave, into balls move again. So once you're used to the cadence of the fight, I find this fight actually really fun once you're used to it. But the first time it can be very overwhelming. It's a lot of AoE damage and a lot of movement. I tend to prefer to take the Tank Buster in the middle. It's like kind of a way, we're like moving in a circle around the edge of the room. So if I go to the middle, usually no one will be there. But just be careful while you're doing this. Here I step away from the boss since I'm a paladin. Most of my skills are ranged. So my DPS can freely hit him without having to worry about max melee. After that, we move the boss around to the edge, and it's a rinse and repeat. So that's the rest of the boss fight. I think you've seen everything at this point. So yeah, that's the City of Threads Masterclass. Thanks everyone for watching. Peace out.